Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So today I'm gonna do a quick video for all you Lexus IS owners, especially the 2IS owners, and the rear caliper. One of the big problems is this rear caliper ends up seizing, and I'll show you exactly where it seizes and what you can do to prevent it from seizing as a routine maintenance item. So stay tuned. So the rear caliper, Lexus IS250, the Lexus IS350 on the second gen has a very notorious problem with this caliper right here seizing. On this caliper, there's actually a slide pin on the bottom here, and there's a boot. The rubber boot here is a very poor boot that doesn't seal very well, and it gets moisture in there, and the moisture sits inside of here and it ends up corroding that inside of here, and it gets stuck. So what happens is this thing no longer slides and the piston is doing all the work. You'll end up having uneven wear on your rear pads. So to prevent that, you actually have to grease that thing up periodically. In addition, if your boot starts to swell or it's ripped, you might as well replace it just to be sure. So on today's video, I'm actually going to replace this boot and this boot right here just to be safe. I think the last time I worked on this, these things were swelling up, and I just want to make sure that I have it greased up and these things are actually working. In addition, when you're back here maintaining and licking stuff, you will always want to check your bleeder valve to make sure that this thing is in place and it's not missing. On here, I actually had to replace mine because it's swelling up and cracking from age, so I actually replaced it with a Brembo one from one of my Brembo kits for all the stuff I've been doing on all my cars with brakes. So removing this thing is pretty straightforward. So the first thing you want to do is remove the pads. You actually remove the pads without even unbolting anything on this thing. You take apart these clips right here. There's two clips that hold this thing in. Once you take that off, you slide these pins right out on both sides here, and the pads just pop right out. As far as like greasing and taking the caliper off, it's a pretty straightforward thing to take it off. You just got this one bolt right here, unbolt that thing, flip this whole caliper off that way once you take the pads out, and you can actually slide it that way off the slide pin, and you take the whole assembly off. So this is the boot kit I'm going to be using today. I bought it from Carlson. Here's the part number for it. You could find this on Amazon or on Rock Auto or all over the internet. The one thing I noticed when I got this thing, I opened it up, it was in another bag which has a different part number. And if you actually look up these part numbers, this is probably the same thing Wagner, StopTech, Centric, and everybody uses. They just have this generic part number that's the main manufacturer's part number, and then each one of the different manufacturers has a different part number that they go by. I've been working on brakes a lot on different cars and different models, and a lot of these companies just repackage the same product. All right, to remove this stuff, you want to go ahead and just pop this thing out right here on this thing. Just pop the two sides here first and just get it out of the way. So now you got the pins out, go ahead and just pull these pins. For this one, you want to move this lock pin right here out. So that locks that in. Slide it out, and then just take your pins and put them off to the side. Once you do that, just go ahead and just slide the pads out. You could move it a little bit just to free the piston up a little to give you some wiggle space, and then just slide the pads out. Just go ahead and slide that out. And then once you do that, you just slide the inside pad out, and you got both the pads right there. And then there's a 19 millimeter that holds this top one, so unbolt the 19 millimeter, and then we just slide the whole caliper out. So right here, just spin it. So this thing, I've got grease in here, but right now it feels tight as far as turning it, so I'm not sure why it's not spinning as freely or as easily. Probably because I remember these things being swollen, so maybe that's what's causing the issue. Once you get it loose, slides right out, and then you can slide that thing out, and you can see that slide pin right there, and that's what seizes right here, this thing right down here. Put it back on that slide pin and just take a back of a hammer and push it through. So here's what that bolt looks like right here, and looks like that anti-seize grease I use, it's actually frozen up and gotten sticky, so I gotta clean all this off You'll go ahead and pull this thing guy out right here, and we'll compare this to the new ones and see how much they've swollen. So this is the bottom gasket or boot right here that slides onto this guy, and it's, like I said, it's swollen and it's bigger than it's supposed to be, so we're gonna go ahead and put that new one on. So you can see here, this is the new boot and this is the original one. Look how much they've swollen since, I don't know, I must have cleaned it with some petroleum or something, because the one thing with these seals for brakes and stuff, they're very sensitive to different oils, and if you get the wrong oils, the wrong cleaners on them, they just soak it up. So you can see this thing is freaking tiny compared to these guys, which are giant and oversized now. So that explains why it's so tight and we couldn't get that bolt out. So I'm gonna go ahead, like I said, clean off all that old anti-seize grease I used. I think I was using a regular petroleum based grease on here. That's what caused the swelling. So make sure you use only a silicone based grease on these boots right here to prevent them from swelling up and expanding and then letting water in. You want to use stuff like a Sil Glide or a specific brake grease to put in. Then we'll go ahead and use some silicone grease in here and in this boot to keep the nut and bolt and everything lubricated, and just keep an eye on it. So over here, to keep this slide pin right here from seizing, you once in a while you gotta take this thing apart and just actually clean it out and make sure that thing is actually moving back and forth. So what you do is basically slide that off, clean it up, clean any moisture on there, and make sure if there's any corrosion that builds up on the pin or inside the hole right here of the caliper, you clean all that corrosion out and re-grease it with a silicone based grease, and just keep your eye on it. All right, went ahead and cleaned everything up on the actual slide pin, and I put some silicone grease right here, some clear silicone grease for brakes. All right, so actually after messing around with this thing, I discovered that it was easier to get the boot onto the caliper, the flat side of the boot, on the taper side of the boot onto here, and then we'll just go ahead and slide it in, and this side snaps in on the other side much easier. So, yeah, once you slide it in, just tuck your, just put a little bit of pressure in there, and it kind of slips over this thing much easier. But yeah, still kind of a pain. You need a little pick or something that won't damage it to get it on over the, this is why this design seizes up so much, because it's a pain in the ass to get that thing in, and a lot of technicians and brake people don't pay attention to that, and then they leave it open. You get moisture in there and it seizes up. So let me work on this a little bit and get it in there. Man, that was a big pain in the ass. I got that thing in there and tightened all the way around, so I could see where people can screw this up and not get it in there, because yeah, it took me a while there off camera to get it all perfect, but I'm in here now and it's a nice tight seal. So for this one right here, we want to just make sure we grease it up a little bit just to slide it through here and just to get the bolt through, but you want to just get it in there just like that, and then we're going to get our bolt back in here. I greased up the inner lip and the outer lip on both sides so I can slide the bolt in. We just want to go ahead and slide that in. Make sure that right here, as you can see, we have the flat side over here on the front of the caliper, and then the back, which is a taper side, goes into the bolt. So again, the hard part is always trying to get it around the initial spot and sliding it all the way through, especially with these new boots that aren't expanded. This thing is a big pain. Once I get it past here, I gotta slide this thing back in. All right. There we go. So once we do that, we get it up here lined up with the bracket and just tighten it down. Once you tighten it down, everything squeezes and sandwiches back in. All right, now we got everything back. Just go ahead and put your pads back in. Slide them back the way you got them out. Put the clips back in. So here's where it gets a little bit tricky, because like I said earlier, you want to push that piston to give you a little bit more room. But every time I do this, I always end up somehow getting tighter when I get back on. So just snap it in. So for the pins, you want to make sure you get the spring pin right here in first between, so this thing kind of spreads the pads out in between the two holes there. One way. And once you get that first pin in, then the second pin locks both of these guys from sliding back out. Get that first pin in there. Make sure you get the hole orientation right too for your actual lock pin. Okay, and then the bottom pin just slides right in with no spring pin. And again, we want to make sure we get the orientation of that correct, so when you get the thing in, the clip in, this last locking clip, everything fits in perfect. Once you snap that in, you flip this thing down onto it, go around the edges, and lock that thing in place. So we got the clips in correctly there. You want to make sure the locking pin that holds the two eyes is in there, and then you just basically tuck the spring one right over it and then clip it back here so it kind of holds it in place and it doesn't go anywhere. Hey guys, thanks for joining me on this quick video on doing that boot and checking that slide pin on the rear calipers on the 2IS. As you can see, this is a very common problem that's gonna seize, and it's not a whether, it's an if, it's when it's gonna happen. So you just gotta make sure you stay on top of that. Check on those slide pins every once in a while, every time you rotate your tires or do maintenance, and just make sure that everything is greased up in there and the boots and everything aren't ripped and they're actually on the actual lips of both sides of the bracket and the calipers to not get any kind of moisture in there. If you guys found this video useful for your own problems or project, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Turn on bell notifications to get notified every time I upload a video. Whether I'm doing projects on the 2IS, the IS300, the Sienna, the house, the garage, whatever I'm doing, if I can do it, you guys can do it. I want to thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you guys next time.